This is Cato. I'm a staff writer with The Athletic covering the Mavericks and the NBA, and you are listening to The Bandwagon.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today is Thursday, June 28th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning into today's edition of the Bandwagon Sports Podcast. Great show for you as always this week as The Athletic NBA staff writer and Mavericks emphasis this guy has. Recurring guest Tim Cato jumps on the wagon today. As always, from Green Bay, Wisconsin, my name is Alex Strouf. You can find me on Twitter at Alex_Strouf, S-T-R-O-U-F. Joining me, as always, on the other side of the country, from the middle of North Carolina, his name is Victor Hensley. You can find Vic on Twitter at Freezeal, F-R-E-Z-E-A-L 33, Freezeal33 on Twitter. Mr. Victor.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. You're enthusiastic today. I love it.
That was an incredibly unprofessional opening, but that's okay.
Bah! And just punched him right in the jaw. I was feeling like Rocky. I got to look at the drunk driving arrest with my fine-tooth comb.
What was the last thing you jumped on?
The bandwagon.
There's a lot of stuff that went on. A whole lot of stuff this past week. Since we were on the air last.
It has indeed been a very busy week in sports. Let's start with what we're going to talk with Tim about a little bit. Well, both things, I guess, we're going to talk with Tim a little bit about. But we want to hit on some points first. The draft recap. I guess, where do you want to start? Your Magic got Mo Bamba. That was the number one guy you wanted.
We did get Mo Bamba. I think where I really want to start with, I'll get into that in a second. What I really want to start with is, I guess we knew the first two picks. That was pretty much a given regardless. Ayton to the Suns and Marvin Bagley III to, or as Woj called him, Marvin Bagley Jr. to the Kings. But then I think after that's what it really got interesting with the whole Doncic-Trae Young trade. I'm not going to lie, Alex. As an Orlando Magic fan, I was heated at that point. I thought we could have been the ones to trade for the number 3 pick and get Doncic. It's okay. It is what it is. But I think honestly, as Cato's going to mention later, I think it was a great trade for both teams, for Atlanta and for Dallas. I mean, I can't really, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I agree. I love
both teams needed it. Yeah, 100%.
I'm a big Doncic guy. I don't like Trae Young, but I don't see the Hawks
really?
being good in any time soon, especially since Dennis Schroeder's going to be out the door pretty quick here. So, yeah, I don't see them being good. They got a guard that's not going to hoist them any better than they were last year. And Dallas, who's a franchise I've always respected, got who I think is potentially the best prospect, second best prospect in this draft. It's 1 and 2 for me. It's Doncic and Bagley. And that said, a guy that's going to learn a lot from another overseas god that is Dirk Nowitzki. So I love that fit for Dallas. I'm excited to see what Doncic can do. So I'm intrigued.
Did you just say, I mean, I agree with you on the whole Doncic-Dallas thing. Oh, that's great. Did you just say Trae Young's not going to make Atlanta any better than they were last year?
Well, you're replacing Dennis Schroeder with Trae
Who's
Young.
not very good. So
Yeah, but he was definitely probably their best player last year, right?
they didn't have a lot of them.
Yeah, and they're not going to this year either.
They're going to be a little better.
I don't think so.
I mean, they've got it because they also got a nice second pick, and I can't pronounce. I always botch his name, but Huter or whatever.
Oh, Josh Herter or whatever from Maryland, yeah.
I mean, I think that's going to be a good addition. That's going to be a player they're going to be plug in there. As Cato's going to mention later, it could be kind of a Steph Clay kind of thing going on. Not quite to that magnitude, but Atlanta's definitely going to be better than they were this year. They were horrendous this year.
They got shooters, but they're going to be horrendous again next year. I mean, maybe they'll be a little bit better.
They'll 100% be a little.
I just don't know how Trae Young's going to be. I just don't know.
I know you don't. I'm not going to get into this with you again. You hate Trae Young.
I don't hate him.
Yes, you do.
I mean, if he does well, he proves me wrong. So be it. I'm okay with it. He's a fun player to watch.
He was the best player in the country this past year.
Yeah, he was.
And you dog him way too much.
Yeah, I do.
But anyway, a little too much. Number 4 was Jaren Jackson Jr. Cool. That's fine.
Cool.
With him and Wendell Carter, who went number 7 to the Bulls, there's no excitement there for me. I don't get.
However, Wendell Carter's parents are pissed at Duke because of recruiting scandals, so we'll see what comes out of that.
I'm sure nothing. It's Duke.
That's accurate.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think that there really wasn't anything fun for me there. But I will say, number 6, Mo Bamba came along for the Magic, and I'm actually pretty hype about that. You, Will, we all kind of said Mo Bamba could potentially be the best player in this draft,
sure.
and I'm here for it, man. There's gonna be the triplet towers there in Orlando, and I'm here for it.
There you go.
Super excited.
I know. I'm happy for you. I thought that was a good pick. And Cato, we're gonna leave a little cliffhanger here, but Tim says there could be another solid guard piece falling in Orlando. We'll leave that for the interview.
Yes, sir.
That had you fired up. But there's one more pick I want to hit on before we kind of close out our draft recap, and it was the final lottery pick, 14th overall. Michael Porter Jr. to the Denver Nuggets. He fell a lot further than most expected. It could be an interesting fit because, I mean, Denver was on the verge of making the playoffs last year, and now they grab a guy like Michael Porter Jr., who is probably going to be one of the biggest boom or bust players we've seen in the last decade.
You can't look at that pick and say there's any other selection out there that was a bigger steal in this draft.
Oh no, there wasn't.
You
And I think with that, Vic, when I look at it, it's if he deals with injuries, doesn't have a very good career, so what? It's a 14th pick. Denver's still a darn good basketball team. Like I said, I mean, they had the 14th pick, so they were the best team to not make the playoffs last year. So I don't know. I think that they're on the verge of hitting that next note, if you will. There's a lot of teams in the West that are looking to get back into the playoffs. But nonetheless, I think Michael Porter Jr. could add a very interesting both offensive and defensive aspect to that Denver Nuggets team, who is really close to reaching that next level. Should be an interesting fit.
100%. I can't disagree with that at all. Me and you talked about it before, and I didn't think Porter should have went in top 5 or anything like that because I think there's too much of a risk with his back issues. But the fact that he fell to 14. Like, that's insane to me.
That was insane.
I mean, I didn't know if he was ever going to get picked. I was sitting there on draft night, like, I'm sure he was thinking the same thing. Like, okay, what's going on here? So I thought that was insane. Nuggets got a steal there. Nuggets are going to be they're going to be all right. I mean, they're still probably going to make it as the 8th seed and get swept potentially.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. Either that or they're going to end up on the outside looking in like they were this year. But I don't know. I think. To me, it seems like with this draft, the West just kind of got a little more stacked, and it's just kind of like the East is just never gonna become much of anything. Because I mean, if you look at Dallas, even Tim Cato was talking about what you hear in the interview. They have a chance to potentially make the playoffs. Maybe not this year, maybe a little bit down the road.
But Bagley and Ayton, top 2 picks, Western Conference, top 3 picks essentially.
So I'm not. The Kings aren't. I'm not even talking about them necessarily. But the Suns, I think the Suns have a shot to shoot for the 8th seed potentially. Maybe it's going to take a little bit longer to get those guys to get some experience. But Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, I mean, I think they've got a little something brewing there in Phoenix.
No doubt.
Memphis got Jaren Jackson Jr. and I mean he's a solid pick. He's not exciting, but he's a solid pick. And I think you and I can agree, and a lot of people can agree. Memphis is not as bad as they were last year. Like they're not that bad. So that's another team that could be up there in the mix. Whereas the Eastern Conference, I mean, who really improved on draft night in the Eastern Conference? I think Orlando got a little bit better.
Yeah.
Chicago maybe got a little bit better.
I think Milwaukee's a pick that's underrated. Dante DiVincenzo at 17. I think that's going to be a good fit.
To me, he's a boomer bust guy too. He was good in
too.
college, but I honestly, and this is the Jadeveon Clowney effect for me, is kind of. He played in the big game, had a nice little play, or had for Jadeveon Clowney anyway. He had that amazing hit where he forced the fumble and recovered the fumble.
Yeah, but
let me continue. And then he ended up going number 1 overall. He's panned out.
Hold on a minute. Do you have a floss in your? Do you have a floss thing in your hand?
I gotta hold something while I'm talking. This is the closest thing to me. Anyway, all right. So, so it's kind of like the Jadeveon Clowney effect for me. Whereas I was a little bit wrong about Clowney. I didn't think he was as good as he was getting picked number 1 overall. He's kind of proved me wrong. He's had a fantastic career with the Texans thus far. But as for DiVincenzo, I think there's an argument to be made that his title game his amazing heroics in the title game could be the reason he was picked this high, even in the first round. I don't know.
Yeah, but you could make that case more for DiVincenzo than you could Clowney, because Clowney was consistently the best defensive player probably or one of the best defensive players in the country that whole season.
Agreed.
Where that big play was what you saw in every highlight reel. But DiVincenzo, he had some good plays throughout the season. He played, but come the championship game, the kid's scoring a 30-burger and playing essentially every minute in the second half. So a little bit different of a comparison there.
A little bit, but in the sense that I feel like Clowney wasn't in the media, really. He was great there at South Carolina. He was doing amazing things, but he wasn't in the media as much until that hit. He became like a media darling at that point because everybody always wanted to see the play. They brought him on for interviews all the time and things like that. That's when his name started getting circulated.
Yeah, that's
Same
fair.
thing with DiVincenzo. So I think both players could pan out there. Like Clowney did, DiVincenzo has a chance. But I am glad to finally see Giannis maybe getting a little bit of help there in Milwaukee because he darn sure needs it.
That is indeed true. So speaking of help and teams, free agency, let's hit on that before we get to Tim. I guess maybe predictions or anything you're looking for in particular, Vic?
Yeah, so I guess this is technically our little bit of a free agency preview show because we're not going to have a show until after free agency begins it starts on July 1st, which is Sunday?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
I don't really have... It's hard, man, because I feel like we don't really have a lot of information, I guess. Like, it's not like I feel like usually before free agency begins we have, this player's shifting towards going here. Before this season, I thought Paul George was in LA. 2018-19, he was going to play in LA. Now I'm not so sure.
No,
I think
I'm not
there's
either.
a chance. I think he's probably still going to LA.
I don't.
Because I don't think they were getting LeBron. I'm going to be honest. I don't think LeBron's going to LA. I don't know. I think here's my thing. You know where I think LeBron's going. I think he's going to Philly.
You think he's going to Philly? Yeah.
I think there's a young
I don't think
core
there's
there.
a chance of it.
I think there's a 100% chance. It's probably the best young core in the NBA.
It would make more sense in LA, wouldn't it? Other than just the city aspect, it would make more sense in LA.
Oh, it would make more sense than LA.
Right
Yeah,
now,
100%.
though. Right now, it would make more sense. Well,
Here,
next year you have Kawhi. You have Kawhi locked for next year. There's a potential you have a guy like Chris
he might
Paul.
go to the Clippers. He may go to the Clippers. He never said I want to go to the Lakers.
He said
I wanna go to LA.
preferably the Lakers.
It's one of the two. Whoever offers him more money, honestly.
Right.
That's probably what it's going to come down to. But the thing is about LA, there's a couple things of why I don't think LeBron's going there. If the Lakers trade for Kawhi and Kawhi gets there, and then Paul George is almost locked to come there too, LeBron's going to go there.
Yeah.
Because he's a sucker for super teams. That's his thing.
I don't know about that.
Well, he did it. He did it in Miami, and he did it again in Cleveland. So I don't know what you're talking about. His last two free agency decisions. But anyway, there's a couple things about LA though. I don't see him going to LA because of these few reasons. Number one, it's in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
I don't see. Him
I think
going
that's
to the
an
Western
issue as
Conference.
well.
He has dominated the East for so long. Why would he leave? Why would he? Because he knows 100% he's not dominating the West. It's just not going to happen. Maybe he wants for his legacy, he can be like, hey, I didn't just dominate the East. I didn't just go to the finals in the East. He's not going to go to the finals from the West unless they just build some massive super team over there, which it looks like they could, but as of right now, doesn't 100% look like that. Number two, and this is a big thing for me, look at the team he just came from in Cleveland, right? When you watched LeBron on Cleveland this past year, did you not kind of seem like, did it not seem a little depressing?
Yeah.
Being in Cleveland, being with those guys who didn't take things seriously, J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson always joking around, not really caring about anything.
Yeah.
That's how it is in L.A. That's how this team is in L.A. Kobe Bryant, not all these guys were on the team when Kobe was there, but Kobe Bryant didn't want to play with this team. He didn't care anymore because the players wouldn't take it seriously. Now, Nick Young's not on the team or anything like that, so that's a good thing. But it's just like, you look at that team, and it just looks like a younger Cleveland.
Yeah.
In the sense that there's young dudes who have a little bit of potential. That's about it. Like, Julius Randle is not what everybody thinks he is. He's not much of anything. Brandon Ingram, at this point, You think he'd show something. He's not really showing anything. Lonzo Ball can't shoot the ball, and his dad's crazy. Right? Like, in my mind, the only reason LeBron would go to Los Angeles is for Los Angeles. He's not going to enjoy playing on that team. That team is not going to be fun to play with. Dealing with LeVar in your ear all the time. Nothing about L.A. other than the fact that L.A. is L.A. makes it seem like LeBron wants to go there.
I think Lonzo. I almost said LeVar. LeVar and Lonzo are on their way to San Antonio.
Why would they? Well, who's their point guard at that point?
LeBron.
I don't think LeBron wants to be a point guard.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
That's what I'm saying. And here's another thing with Kawhi. Anyway, in my opinion, I know Cato has a different opinion. I don't think that the Lakers should trade for Kawhi. I think it's ridiculous for them to do so. What is the point of that?
We'll see. I don't know. I guess let's run through that real quick. Let's kind of do how we end Cato. Let's just run through a couple of free agents where you think they'll end up. LeBron, you have Philly. I have L.A. I know Kawhi's not a free agent, but let's just go with where he plays next season.
Honestly, man, I think he's staying in San Antonio this season.
Okay.
I think the Spurs are too stubborn.
I'm going to go Boston. I think he gets traded to Boston.
Okay.
How about Paul George? I think he's staying put.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles? You think he's going elsewhere?
Lakers. Yep.
Boogie. Where's he going?
Oh, I think Boogie's staying with the Pelicans.
I think so, too.
Nice little core down there.
I think so, too. Anybody else I'm missing that's super notable that
Chris
I can
Paul,
actually make a guess on? I think he stays put in Houston.
Clint Capella.
I think he's restricted, so I think he'll stay.
Probably. I'm trying to think of who you asked, Cato. Isaiah Thomas.
I have no idea.
I have no clue either. I mean, I'd like for him to go to where he maybe said that he might go.
Hint, hint.
I'm just gonna leave that there. But yeah, I don't know. JJ Redick.
I don't know that one either. Probably stays in Philly.
I imagine he's staying in Philly at this point.
You know what? I'm taking back my Chris Paul.
What?
I think he's going to L.A.
Why in the world would Chris Paul? The Lakers, L.A.
Yeah, and then Kawhi gets traded. Chris Paul's now the Lakers' point guard, and you have CP3, LeBron, and Kawhi. That is a realistic possibility, is it not?
No, I mean, yeah, sure, but the thing is about Chris Paul in that situation, he's already played in L.A. You know what I'm saying?
But he played for the other LA team. He's going to match up with his super team was DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin, a bunch of nobodies in a few years. He could play with two Hall of Famers and Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but I think if Kawhi gets traded, it's not going to be in the next week. Chris Paul will probably make a decision the next week.
Well, so is LeBron. LeBron is making a decision on the 4th from what I've heard.
Yeah, I don't think LeBron or Chris Paul. I think the only free agent LA is getting, a big free agent, is Paul George. That's what I've always thought.
All right.
I mean, Paul George has pretty much essentially said he's going to LA for like the last 4 years without actually saying it. It's going to happen.
Is there anybody that's out there, and I'd probably have to look down the list a little bit, but is there any free agents out there that you think is just going to get a really big deal, kind of like your Timothy Mozgovs of the world, that's going to get a huge deal for no reason?
Oh, one guy I honestly could see getting a decent deal is Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
It depends if he. Now, I honestly could see him going to Golden State. That's a legitimate thing. But if he ends up signing with someone like, it wouldn't be Atlanta because they already got rid of him, but someone like in Atlanta, they might just throw a ton of money at him just to get him to come there. Not Atlanta, but someone like that. I don't really know later on down the list who really is a free agent. Some of these other guys. But I know. I mean, a guy like, for example, a guy like Aaron Gordon. He's a restricted free agent.
Yeah,
he's
he
probably
could
going
get
to
a
get a
big
max
deal.
We'll see if Orlando actually offers him a max deal. Let's see who else does.
I think Jabari Parker. I don't think the Bucks are going to resign him. I think he's going elsewhere, and I think he'll get too much money.
I don't think he'll get too much money because at least maybe it's just because of the market. I don't think he's done anything hardly.
He hasn't. I think somebody's going to overpay for him.
The thing about being overpaid, we saw it with Bismack Boyambo for example, is I feel like you have to have a reason though. You have to have a moment, like a Timothy Mozgov. He had like a moment in the finals or the playoffs. So he did pretty well. Bismack just had had a moment in the playoffs against the Cavs maybe. You have to have like a moment where it's like I'm gonna pay for that moment right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see how this all shakes out. It should be a very interesting week. So when we
it's either that. It's either going to be extremely interesting or exceptionally boring.
Yeah, one or the other. I don't know.
There's so many. This is like the first free agency I've seen where a lot of people could actually just stay put. It seems like every year everybody's moving everywhere.
It's looking that way, isn't it?
Technically, LeBron could stay in Cleveland. And wouldn't that just be the most boring thing on the planet?
I think there's a way better chance than people are giving it.
I agree. I think the only reason now I honestly thought he could, but the fact that his son enrolled in a school outside of Cleveland makes me think he's probably leaving.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we will find out. So let's call it quits there. Let's bring in Tim Cato. Draft stories, Luka Doncic stories, personal moves, and predictions for the NBA offseason. Let's bring in the Athletics, Tim Cato. We are joined now by our good friend, recurring guest, newly with the Athletic. We'll get into that with a second. Mr. Tim Cato joins us. Tim, thanks for joining us. How are we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing well. Cannot complain. So, Tim, I guess let's dive into that before we dive into anything else. Newly with the Athletic. Talk to me about the switch from SB Nation to the Athletic and what the new journey has been like so far for you.
Yeah, it's been really good, and I appreciate you guys asking. You know, I want to say it's probably been 6 weeks or so now, something like that. And you know, I'm covering. I'm the Dallas Mavericks beat writer essentially at the Athletic Dallas. But I'll also be doing some NBA coverage. You know, I am definitely an NBA guy, and I think it's good to be a beat writer, and it's good to I was already based in Dallas, so it's good to tackle the team that's in my market a little bit more seriously. But I'll also be around the league and traveling and covering various things. So I'm really excited, and I think it's a good move, and it's exciting to be a part of this company as it's especially it's really on the glow up, if you will. So exciting times.
No doubt about that, and obviously, like you said, the move made sense for you, so I'm happy you did it because I am an avid reader of The Athletic, like I've told you before. So, obviously an awesome move. One of your first bigger assignments, I'd say, would be you were in New York last week for the NBA draft, covering both the NBA and the Mavs, as you said. So dive into that a little bit for me. What was the experience like out in New York, the vibes, the feels, and all the in-betweens?
Yeah, I've never been to the draft before, and so that was a cool experience. Even though I spent a lot of time, to be honest, in the tunnels underneath the Barclays Center chasing around Luka Doncic. Yeah, who he was probably the most popular guy there. He might have had more interviews just because he's an international guy, and all the international press wants him as well. Yeah, I think he might have ended up with more interviews than even DeAndre Ayton, who went number one.
Oh wow.
But yeah, Doncic was everywhere. He's a great kid, and it was cool to see that. Both I think it was the right choice for the Mavericks, the right move for the Mavericks. It's great. Great and exciting for me to get a really top prospect that who I thought was the best player in the draft. I was excited to get him here in Dallas. So I'll have close access to him, and just see that guy as he's on the come up. So it was a very very neat experience, and definitely hope I'm out there next year as well.
So we'll get into Doncic more here in just a second, but I gotta ask, we're big story guys. Do you have any fun stories from the draft? There's a ton of personalities running around the draft this weekend. So anything you got story wise?
Yeah, I mean obviously I wrote about Doncic, and some of the things I had in there was just the big story I wrote about Doncic kind of led with this just a little thing where he got pulled into the side room, and the entire night I really thought that Doncic just had a really good sense about him. He's a 19-year-old, but he's been playing professionally for 4 years, and I barely ever saw him get phased. He was definitely tired by the end of it just because it went so long and he was asked so many questions, and I was almost feeling bad for him. there was one moment, and they're trying to, like, I guess, make gifts. I think it was the NBA social media team, and so they had him in front of the camera, and he's making all these different faces and doing thumbs ups, and he's pretending to flex and things like that. And he could have flexed because his suit jacket was too tight. But then they asked him, hey, can you do just a little dance for us or something like that? And he kind of pauses, and he's like a 19-year-old kid. He's like, okay, what do I do here? I don't want to embarrass myself. And then I think the person in charge of it like suggests something, and he's like still pausing for a second, and he finally does, moves his arm, waves his arm around it, and satisfies the requirements. But that was the only moment I really saw Doncic where he looked uncomfortable or looked kind of lost, because otherwise this is really what he does. He's been professional for so long playing basketball, and even answering media questions. I'm sure not at that scale, but definitely been a popular person who knows what he's doing. So I thought that was a funny juxtaposition of the kid that he is, as well as being a uber professional who's been doing this for a long time.
That's pretty amazing. I love it. So just to get into more about him not dancing. So on draft night, we found out about the whole, Doncic Trae Young trade with the Atlanta Hawks. So it wasn't really a shock because we knew the Atlanta Hawks were shopping that number 3 pick. But how did you feel when you heard the news about that trade going down?
I thought it made sense for both sides, to be honest. I think Doncic was the best player in the draft. If I was Atlanta, I would have taken him. But I like, for Atlanta's perspective, real quick first, I like that they're kind of settling on an identity. They're saying that Trae Young and their second or their later first round pick, Kevin Huerter, those guys are in some ways kind of a Steph and Clay duo, and I don't think that Atlanta thinks they're going to be Steph and Clay. But I like that they're kind of lashing onto a Warriors-like identity, and I think that's the biggest thing for front office is just to be consistent and with these once you have a plan, you commit to your plan. And I think that also kind of applies to the Mavericks, and the reason that they traded up is that they want to win now. They want to win. Hopefully make the playoffs next year. That seems like a bit of a long shot, but definitely going forward. So they're going to have cap space. They're going to have 2 young players who are hopefully really enticing for free agents to come play with. They have a lot of cap space this year, and if they play their cards right, they'll have depending on what they do, they'll have cap space next year. So I think moving up and getting both a win now player, a guy who distribute immediately, a guy who was the MVP over in one of the second best leagues in Europe, getting that guy, pairing him with Dennis Smith, and just really committing to him, even at the expense of next year's draft pick, I think that was the right move. So I think overall, I like that both teams, really just committed to the identities that they're kind of pushing for. And I think it's always a good thing when you can look at a team and understand what they're doing and where they're coming from. And I think that in both instances that trade helped out in that sense.
Yeah, I guess when you bring that up, Tim, I've been curious. I wanted to ask you this question, although it's an interesting one. I guess going into the draft, you really didn't see the Dallas Mavericks or yourself covering Luka Doncic, did you? I mean, this seemed like it was very unlikely going into the draft, right?
Yeah, it was. In fact, I wrote like draft profiles or draft previews of all the prospects I thought they might take, and I did not do one for Doncic.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just like, it definitely wasn't, I always thought it was a long shot. I always understood that they were interested, but I thought the actual act of trading up just wouldn't happen. And I think it wouldn't have if Atlanta didn't have, somewhat radical thoughts about how they're rebuilding their team. Again, I'm a fan of it. I'm into it. But it is a gamble to say that, the consensus number 1 or number 2 prospect, that you're going to trade down and get that guy, especially when you drop the spot further than a lot of people thought, and go for someone like Trae Young. So, by no means it wasn't expected.
Right, and you mentioned how Doncic is kind of like a win-now player. So I guess if you were going to make a case for how and why Dallas will make the playoffs in that stacked West this year, or maybe the next couple years, what would you say that is their big focal point of trying to make the playoffs? Like, how do they do it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one thing is, they won 24 games last year, I think, 23 or 24, I always forget. But they won 24 games with a historically bad record in clutch games or close games, games decided by like 5 points, or games that are like, within 5 points headed into the final couple minutes. Some of that was the fact that they were purposely trying to lose, that they were tanking, they were playing bad lineups. Another part of it is that they were, I think they just got unlucky. So I would start by saying the team was probably not as bad as they were. Like the team was not actually as bad as they ended up being last season. So I think that's a good start to watch. So last year's team was maybe more of a 30-win team, maybe a 32-win team, a 24-win team. Next, you factor in Dennis Smith. He should improve a little bit. He should become a little bit more efficient. I think those will both be, those that will obviously help the team if he's able to be, just a bit more complete of a point guard. You add in Doncic, who's a win-now player. They're likely going to retain Wes Matthews. They're still going to have Harrison Barnes. You know what you're going to get out of those two guys. Dirk Nowitzki probably comes off the bench because I expect Dallas to go get a center in free agency. And I don't know who exactly. DeAndre Jordan's been rumored. Bookie's been rumored. There's some names out there. And wouldn't necessarily be a long-term guy, but at least for next season, I would expect someone who's not on the roster will end up on the roster and be their starting center. So you consider all of those things, and then hopefully you just fill out the roster, the bench outside of that, and maybe a team that was probably a 30-win team last year and then just got unlucky and it tanked and did some other things. Maybe that's enough to get them up to 40 wins. And in fact, Western Conference, you might need 45, but. I think there's definitely room for improvement on this team, and I don't know if it's going to be enough just because of how loaded their conference is. Right. There's definitely ways that they're going to be better. I'm confident about that.
Well, let's dive into free agency. I guess the really hot topic, and we'll get it right away. We'll get it out of the way. Where's LeBron going next year? I got to know, Tim. You're the expert.
I guess Los Angeles. I think it's Los Angeles or Cleveland, and I think he ends up going to Los Angeles. I think that he would feel. I think if they make the Kawhi trade or they do get another big free agent, if Paul George commits, then it's pretty much locked in. If that doesn't happen, if either of those things look like they're happening, especially since LeBron wants to make his decision early on in free agency, he keeps saying, maybe Cleveland still has a chance, but I'm pretty sure it's Los Angeles.
Well, and I think just earlier this morning, the news came out that the Lakers are kind of feeling pressured to trade for Kawhi Leonard just as a pitch to LeBron. So, do you think they have to trade for Kawhi Leonard in that case, or should they wait until next year to try and get him in free agency?
I would feel pretty strongly about making that trade. I think that, at the expense of, it's tough. Obviously it does depend on exactly how much San Antonio is asking for, and at times it sounds like San Antonio hasn't even wanted to do things like that, to even consider trading him to Los Angeles, I guess kind of out of spite because that's where Kawhi wants to go. But every other team in the league can only give up so much for Kawhi because they don't know that he's committed to them in the future. Whereas Los Angeles knows that he's made that clear. He's made it clear that he will resign with them. So as long as his medical stuff checks out, I think you can give up a pretty hefty package for him. I don't know how much, but I think that a player like Brandon Ingram and maybe another place like Josh Hart and a first round pick in the future and maybe some contract stuff outside of that, then yeah. I think that's something that's really, really worth considering in that scenario.
Aside from the Lakers, do you see any maybe dark horse candidates for trading for Kawhi this season? We've heard Boston, Philly potentially. Do you think there's anybody else besides them?
I think the ones you mentioned are probably still the favorites. Those are the teams that have lots of assets and are trying to get better and would love a player like that. It does seem more likely than not that this situation is going to drag itself out. And I don't know exactly if somebody will then emerge as a favorite or if San Antonio will just try to bring him into training camp and hopefully resolve the issue or at least, get him playing for a little while to and tell him, convince him that it's in his own best interest to rebuild some of his value on court. But as of right now, it's really hard to say anyone other than Los Angeles is a favorite or is super likely to trade for him, especially since I just don't see anywhere but Los Angeles making this trade immediately.
So speaking of free agency, obviously a lot of names that could potentially be hitting the market. Chris Paul, we mentioned LeBron, potentially Paul George, DeAndre Jordan, DeMarcus Cousins. The names go on and on and on. So what is the biggest, outside of, your LeBrons, your Kawhi Leonards who could potentially be traded, Who are some of the other big names that you're watching to see, holy crap, this could really shake up the league?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of shaking up the league, I think that probably is mostly, going to be decided by those big ones. I think DeAndre Jordan, whether he opts in and out, obviously, the opt in and out thing is big to a degree. You got to see, who's on the market, who's going to be free agency, who's going to, something like DeAndre Jordan, whether you have to trade for him or whether you have to, just sign him outright because he opts out. Both of those are, going to determine where he ends up, and that's a somewhat big domino to fall. I'm really curious what does happen to Boogie, what his market's like. Someone like Jabari Parker is also like a guy who I just can't get a good sense of what his market looks like. And obviously, the thing to remember about 2018, about this summer, is that there are not a lot of teams with cap space. And, I think that a lot more is going to open up next season, and a lot more free agents are positioning to be free agents next season because they know how much money is going to be on the market. But as of right now, there's not just gobs and gobs of cash out there available for free agents, and especially for centers. I think the only team to bring it back to Dallas is Dallas, who desperately needs a free agency center, and there's about 8 or 9 centers on the market, and some of them are more backups, and some of them will obviously find homes, and I think definitely Los Angeles, if they get LeBron, they're going to end up with a center somehow. I don't know exactly who. Whether it's Julius Randle or not, I guess we'll see. He's also more of a power forward in some ways. But yeah, no, there are a lot of dominoes to fall, and I think the big ones do start at the top with James and George, Paul George. But I think that beyond that, it's just going to be going to be messy. There's not, I said, just with the lack of money on the market and so much uncertainty, I think we're going to see a lot of players pretty disappointed.
And just speaking of centers, there's one guy out there who, and this whole situation really intrigues me, and I think it wouldn't really shake up the league. It just kind of make this team a lot more dominant. Is there any chance, and please God tell me no, that Dwight Howard isn't going to Golden State?
Oh.
Please.
Oh, it would be kind of funny. I think I got him to like Washington. Washington traded away Berton, and they need a cheap center, and they're a team known for making interesting personnel moves. That one makes a lot of sense to me. But Dwight Howard to Golden, I think I would almost welcome Dwight Howard to Golden State just to see on the off chance that he could like tank their chemistry or something. I just think we would get so many hilarious stories, like probably not hilarious for Warriors fans, but hilarious for everyone else. But yeah, no, he's definitely one of those wild cards. Should he get bought out, like it seems like he will be.
You brought up the Rivers-Gortat trade. Give me any insight on that. A guard for a center, you don't see that a whole lot.
Yeah. The Clippers do seem like they're committed to moving on from DeAndre. Even if he opts in, I would imagine they trade him for essentially nothing. The Mavericks are one of those teams with cap space that could just absorb a DeAndre Jordan should they need to. If he opts out, obviously they're not going to re-sign him. Gortat can be the starting center. They have a couple pieces beyond that behind him that are useful. They also drafted 2 guards in the last month, or sorry, still this month, but a couple weeks ago at the draft, they had a couple guards. One of them's a true point guard, one's a little bit bigger, but both of those guys, it was a bit there was a bit of a logjam at the position. So getting rid of Austin Rivers was just a way to kind of free up time and minutes and opportunity for those guys. And as should be noted, Doc Rivers is no longer in charge of the front office. So it wasn't like Doc Rivers. I don't know if Doc Rivers could have traded his son just like that, but the new front office, I had no qualms doing such a thing, and I do think it was a relatively good move for both sides, especially as the Wizards, their time with Gortat had about come to a close. I felt like so. I think it was a good move for both sides.
Yeah, I've seen a ton of Wizards fans on Twitter all excited about the fact they traded Gortat. So I think that was probably good for both teams. Moving away from free agency, I'm going to move away from free agency here for just a second. The NBA awards were just the other day. So were there any awards that surprised you? And then obviously MVP. Did you agree with James Harden being the MVP for this year?
Yeah, I thought all the awards checked out. Definitely think Harden was MVP. I know there's a pretty popular graphic that went around a few times where LeBron had better stats than James in almost every single category. But he played 10 more games, and it was I don't know if you guys have seen that graphic, but it's essentially just their talent stats. They're raw stats. It's not a per game thing. It's okay. This is how many total points he got versus Harden's total points and stuff like that. And that's a ridiculous way to look at games. I don't think that we've ever penalized people for missing about 10 games in a season for an MVP race. So the fact that Harden only played 72, which is still a lot of games, compared to James possibly foolishly, really committing to that 82 mark, which is something got in his head and ended up doing it. I just don't see how that's a fair comparison. For me, it was definitely Harden, and James was incredible, but just the way that he, stopped trying defensively, and in some ways even offensively, he still got stats, but it felt like almost for a month, kind of right leading up to the trade deadline, he was kind of absent from that team. He was on the court, but he wasn't LeBron necessarily, and that part is tough for me to look past. Even as good as he was. So for me, it was definitely Harden, and I thought pretty much all the other awards made sense to me too. To be honest, I don't think it was that controversial of an award season.
Right. And one of the biggest awards that everybody seemed to talk about, like for the latter half of the season, was everybody talked about Rookie of the Year, right? So Ben Simmons won it, whether he was a rookie or not. We don't have to argue that. But I want to ask, out of this year's draft class, who is going to be hoisting that Rookie of the Year trophy next year?
If Dallas can get all the way to the playoffs, then probably Doncic. But my guess is it's going to be one of the top two players, either Ayton or Bagley, just because I think both those guys are immediately going to put up a lot of stats. I don't know if they're, especially with Bagley, who I was pretty low on in the draft. I had him probably like 6th or 7th in my top order, still high, but wasn't number 2 high. I don't know how much they're immediately going to be winning basketball players, but I do think that they're going to, probably both put up 2010, and I think 2010 is traditionally the type of numbers that you need to be a Rookie of the Year. So, I think if both those big men are about as good as anticipated, then I think that, they probably win the award. If I had to pick a dark horse, maybe I would go with Trae Young could maybe do it. Maybe him. That's a dark horse to throw out there.
I don't think he'll translate at all, but we're not going to get into that. Tim, my last one for you, we're going to play a little game here. I'm going to name about 10 or 12 either player option or unrestricted free agents, and you're just going to tell me where you think they're playing next year so I can use this against you to see how wrong or right you are. So, cue the background music. Here we go. LeBron James.
Los Angeles.
Kevin Durant.
Golden State.
Paul George.
Oklahoma City, surprisingly.
Good, I like that pick. Chris Paul.
Rockets, no doubt.
Oh, no doubt. DeMarcus Cousins.
I know I said Dwight Howard to Wizards earlier, but I think actually I could see Boogie to Washington.
Okay. DeAndre Jordan.
Dallas.
JJ Redick.
Either the Lakers or Philly.
I've got 2 more for you. Isaiah Thomas.
Oh man, that's who knows. Orlando.
Okay. Last one. He's restricted. Jabari Parker.
I think Milwaukee was boring, but I actually kind of like that fit still. I liked when him and Giannis were together sometimes.
Sometimes is the key word there, right?
Sometimes is the key word there, yes.
Fair enough. Well, Tim Cato of The Athletic, you're always fantastic. We appreciate your time. We know it's scarce, so we really do appreciate you taking the time to do this with us. You can find Tim on Twitter, all of his phenomenal promotion and sometimes pretty funny tweets, at Tim_Cato, C-A-T-O, on Twitter. Tim Cato, thank you very much once again for joining us in the bandwagon.
Like Jabari, the key word there is sometimes with the tweets. But thanks guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem. We'll talk soon. Take care. Thanks again to Tim Cato of The Athletic for joining us today on the bandwagon. Always great to talk to our old buddy Tim.
He knows his stuff, that's for sure.
No doubt about that. So speaking of people that...
I just want to go ahead and say I think he will 100% have a very large man crush on Luka Doncic by the time his career is over.
I don't blame him.
100%. Yeah.
He is 19, so it's okay. Anyway, so speaking of people that know their stuff, SportsMe, the terrific sports debate app that lets you battle other diehard fans on the hottest sports topics in 30 seconds or less, has allowed us to use their app to give you power to come on here and tell us what you think of our question of the week. So in our inaugural Bandwagon SportsMe question of the week, we turn it over to you for should the NBA awards consider the postseason when it comes to voting?
All right, so I think I can explain this quick enough. When it comes to regular season, you should continue all the awards except MVP because they don't give the MVP awards at the actual MVP. They just give it to top scorer anyways, and you can't judge value on just points, and that's what they do. But defensive player, top scorer, all that stuff, yes, keep it. MVP award should only count for in the playoffs. That's it, not regular season.
All the other superlatives should be regular season to include Rookie of the Year. Rookie of the Year, just because a rookie, where they're being drafted, some of the early rookies could be at the bottom. They're still climbing up to get to the playoffs. So, yeah, what they do in the regular season, I think, counts. But MVP needs to be going in the playoffs. Too often we've seen those guys have great seasons because half their schedule aren't getting those performances night in, night out to give them a challenge. But in the playoffs, we've seen what happens, and all of them don't rock.
All the other superlatives are fine where they are, where they're decided because of the success of a regular season. But I think MVP should be made a case that include the playoffs as a deciding factor. Granted, some people may say that makes the NBA Finals MVP award irrelevant, but at the same time, so many regular season MVPs have failed when it comes to the playoffs. Just look at what Russell Westbrook did last season, failing to carry the Thunder past the first round. An MVP should be decided by their overall body of work, and that includes the postseason.
Man, I just think it's a regular season award. I just think the award show is too late after the year, so that's why you can debate it even more. But I liked it way better when, the MVP and a lot of the awards were awarded to players like about the second round of the playoffs because you got it out the way. But it should stay a regular season award. You have your finals MVP. You should have a Western Conference, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, but I think it should stay as a regular season award.
Yeah, I totally agree that the awards should be given out right after the regular season because, for example, when debating Rookie of the Year, I had Ben Simmons all the way, but then everyone was like, oh, he only had 1 point in this one playoff game. I'm like, do you realize that it's regular season? So a lot of people don't understand how the awards work.
Great job by everybody right there. I love listening to other people chime in on something we're going to talk about. I think I agree with Shot Doctor, who was the second one, a guy out of South Carolina. He said that all of them should be okay. Besides MVP, that needs to include. And the Sports Nerd is his username as well, who was a couple later. He said he needs to consider the overall body of work when it comes to MVP. The rest of them, I think, can remain regular season. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with that. I'm gonna agree and disagree. I do agree. It seems like a lot of people had that exact same sentiment, pretty much. That pretty much every award besides the MVP could not include the playoffs. Here's the thing though for me, is I think first of all I don't think they should have done it this far after the season. I think that's a little absurd. I forgot the NBA existed by this point. I don't know. I literally saw someone ask, has MVP been awarded yet? And this was like a week ago. And I was like, well, no, sorry, you still got to wait a week for MVP. And the other awards, obviously. I think every award should be regular season besides MVP and Coach of the Year. I don't know why Coach of the Year does not include playoffs. I think originally, and I said this actually earlier today before I watched all the responses from SportsMe. I originally thought Rookie of the Year should also should include playoffs, but then as someone mentioned, all of the high draft picks probably aren't in the playoffs, So you can have a great rookie season, but your team around you is just terrible anyway. So,
Yeah.
But definitely Coach of the Year because I think Brad Stevens should have won it. I don't think Dwayne Casey should have won it. And then MVP, I still think should also include the playoffs because at that point you could really make a case for Harden versus LeBron. But if you just count regular season, Harden earns it all day for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Coach of the Year more than MVP because I think MVP, yeah, obviously, when it comes to overall body of work, I think you can make a case. I mean, obviously, last year I think it was brought up within the takes. Westbrook. I mean, the guy failed to make it out of the first round last year. So that said, has anybody ever won Coach of the Year after they had been fired and signed by a different team?
I'm trying to think. I heard like a couple months ago, like right after the Raptors were eliminated, people were talking about Dwayne Casey potentially getting fired. And I can't remember. There may have been one other coach that was. I think George Karl was fired with the Nuggets.
Okay. There you go.
I think he was fired the year he won Coach of the Year. But I think that's about it. I don't know if he signed. I don't think he didn't coach another team right after that though. So it was pretty. It was really awkward. Alex?
Yeah, like the Raptors quote tweeted it. I think they just said congratulations, Dwayne. And
I think they said something like congratulations to Dwayne Casey or something
yeah,
like that.
and then the Pistons quote tweeted it and said congratulations, coach.
And it was like, ooh, that's weird.
This is like a breakup. Like, oh,
really
good job
is.
for you, ex-boyfriend, while the girlfriend's beefing him up on social media. That's my boy.
But it's like at the same time, the Raptors fired him for a reason. So it's not like they should be sad that he won Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
It was pretty much expected. But in my opinion, I don't know how Dwayne Casey wins it over Brad Stevens. Alex, I don't get it.
I don't either.
Like
it made no sense.
I mean, like
to me.
I get it. I guess if you don't include the if you only include the regular season, it bothers me, man. So I agree with a lot of our participants. But I don't know, man. I don't understand why Coach of the Year is my biggest one. You can even make MVP just a regular season MVP, but I think Coach of the Year 100% should include everything.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Especially the fact that, real quick, if you're gonna only include the regular season, please make the awards at the end of the season, at the end of the regular season, and don't postpone it 2 weeks after the playoffs end. You know what I'm saying? It's just
I got you.
ridiculous. So. That's my 2 cents.
So I need to get something off my chest real briefly.
I want you
to. I'm done with Jameis Winston. He is a piece of trash human. From crabs to sexually assaulting women, he is now suspended for the first 3 games of the NFL season. Jameis Winston is a garbage human being. That is all I have.
Can I also kind of bring this up? Yeah, he's kind of a garbage person. He's also not that great of a football player.
It's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? At this point, it's been like 4 years. And that he's been in the league or something, 3-4 years, and it's like, at some point you can't just make the he's young excuse. Like,
yeah,
he's made a ton of off the field mistakes. I mean, he sexually assaulted his Uber driver.
That is correct. Yes.
Like it's alleged. It may not have actually happened. There's people there, witnesses that said it didn't happen, but who knows?
No, witnesses didn't exist now.
The witnesses don't exist anymore?
Yeah, that's the case Winston's lawyer is making. There was no one in the car besides Winston.
I thought his friend said he was in the car.
Nope, not anymore.
Oh. Okay. Well, that doesn't make any sense. I also want you to know just the best part about this is the fact that the Bucks, the first 3 weeks, have the hardest schedule in the NFL.
Yeah.
Have mathematically the hardest schedule in the NFL. And they're going to take
hilarious.
3 L's. So
anyway, speaking of crabs,
yeah.
Jimmy Seafood has gone all in against Mia Khalifa, the former actress, on Twitter, outspoken sports fan as well. So Mia Khalifa earlier on Wednesday evening tweeted that she would never eat at Jimmy's Seafood again, #blocked, after Jimmy Seafood rudely tweeted her. And then Spider-Man, allegedly, tweeted back to Mia Khalifa, "You can dish it, but can't take it." Jimmy Seafood then screenshotted that tweet and said, "Trust us, Spider-Man. She can take it."
Okay, I just want to preface, I just want to talk about this. I don't know if you mentioned it. Mia Khalifa is an adult, or a former adult film star.
She's a porn star, folks.
She's a porn star. Yeah, a former porn star, retired porn star.
We got to put some class on her name. A guy named Brian then replied, said, "LOL, I'm gonna come try you out, guys, just for this tweet." Jimmy Seafood replied to Brian and said, "See you then, Brian. You'll stuff your face and leave feeling satisfied. Just like, okay, we'll stop." Max followed that up with, "Please don't stop. This is incredible." And Jimmy Seafood signed off with, "Said none of her co-stars. Ever." So Jimmy Seafood wins Twitter tonight.
Wow. Yeah, they killed it. Baltimore's own Jimmy Seafood. I've been there. It's a nice little restaurant. Here's the thing. I'm not a big fan of Mia Khalifa, but Alex, I never saw.
Oh, have you seen her work?
I've seen her talk show with Gilbert Arenas.
Oh,
that's for darn
duo,
sure.
That's a great duo.
It's disgusting. So I didn't see. Okay. So you read out the first tweet from Mia Khalifa, right?
Yes.
She was replying to Jimmy Seafood.
Correct.
I don't know what Jimmy Seafood was replying to her because I don't know why they attacked her in the first place.
I'm not sure.
I want to be on Jimmy Seafood's side because, like I said, Baltimore's own, love Baltimore, love the restaurant, all that stuff. But I don't understand. It seems like cyberbullying, Alex. I think we got to call it cyberbullying.
I think you might have a case on your hands.
I think she could file a lawsuit at this point.
Yeah, you're not
So
wrong.
I just want everyone to know we are an anti-cyberbullying podcast, and we're also anti anybody that has a talk show with Gilbert Arenas. Really. Just anybody that associates with him, we're anti them as well.
So instead of jumping on the bandwagon of Jimmy Seafood, as we begin to sign out here, we'll jump into our last segment. No pun intended. We're going to jump on our bandwagons here. I will go first. I'll lead off here.
Okay.
My bandwagon this evening, instead of Jimmy Seafood's Twitter account, is uncomfortable persistency, folks. Now, I'm going to make this nice, sweet, and short. Unlike Karl Anthony Towns' legs, because they are long and naked in the 10th annual ESPN body issue that is being plastered all over social media, the internet, and television. I have seen way more of Karl Anthony Towns and other athletes in the last week or so that I wanted to see, and ESPN's body issue has been making folks uncomfortable for the last 10 years straight, and Karl Anthony Towns is the poster boy for this year's edition, and it is making me incredibly uncomfortable, so I'm done talking about it, but I'm jumping on the bandwagon of uncomfortable persistency.
I'm genuinely curious, what's the purpose of the body issue? I honestly want to know the answer to that question. Is it just to make people comfortable with their bodies?
I think so.
But even though most of them are very athletic bodies and built
Correct.
very athletically, okay, that makes sense. I don't get it, because then the thing is, I was actually an ESPN the magazine subscriber for like a year. I received that issue in the mail. Now at this point, I possess this in my home, in my room. I possess a ESPN magazine with naked people all up in it. You gotta hide it at that point. You can't display that with your other magazines. You can't put it on the coffee table because your friends are gonna freak out. So I've never liked the ESPN body issue, so I understand there. So I've actually got two bandwagons to jump on really quickly. Number one, I'm jumping on dissolving friendships.
Oh no.
So we all know, it's very sad day. We all know good old Richard Jefferson.
Oh, I saw this.
Played for the Cleveland Cavaliers for a good while. I don't know if he's still in the league. He was last year,
not.
I think. So he's not still in the league apparently. And he appeared to previously be really good friends with LeBron James.
Yes.
So because of this, a lot of people have been asking him, where's he going to go in free agency? Because that's a big topic. And so this morning or yesterday morning, Richard Jefferson had a little something to say. And he posted this as a note from his iPhone, I believe on Snapchat is where he posted it. It is with great... Can I have some nice music here? Dramatic music?
Yes, give me 1 second, please.
All right, appreciate that. Because it's quite sad.
All right, Victor. Take it away.
It is with great remorse that I am writing this. After many years as a peer and many years as a friend and teammate, I have decided to end my friendship with LeBron James. I am saying this publicly so that the fans and media members can please stop asking me where he is going in free agency. I don't know, my family doesn't know, and neither do my kids. Unfortunately, I live in Los Angeles, so the questions are unavoidable, but hopefully this helps to clear things up. Truth be told, I never liked the guy. He works too hard and it makes the rest of us look bad. He's my son's favorite player, and I view that as a complete betrayal of how hard I've worked to put a roof over his head. I'm sorry I'm having to give this Drake response, but I feel like this is the best way to address this issue that I'm clearly losing also. I wish everyone the best of luck in free agency, teams and players. Oh, and middle finger emoji to Channing Frye also, just because. So that is the end of the friendship between
How
Richard
sad is
Jefferson and LeBron James. Very, very, very sad. But on a happier note, my second bandwagon I'm jumping on. Alex, I don't know if you heard. The Big Three is back.
It's back, baby.
It's back, baby.
You know,
3 things got to mention.
all right.
3. First, my power 1-0. Birdman, Big Baby, everybody. Nancy Lieberman, first woman head coach to get a professional sports win. Or men's professional sports win. Congratulations, guys. Power 1-0.
Number 2, Tri-State 1-0. Nate Robinson, Andre Stoudemire, Amari Stoudemire. I don't know why I just said Andre. 1-0.
I'm going to bring that up here in a second. Number 2, the Big Three actually legalized CBD oil. You don't know what that is, potentially. I don't know. It comes from marijuana plants, I believe. So they're trying to get away from the whole painkiller, opioid type thing. It's natural. It's good for you, or whatever. It helps with pain. Good job, Big Three. First professional sports league to do so. Third, your Tri-State dominated the defending champion trilogy.
Yes.
And there's drama, Alex.
Yes, I saw this.
Rashad, the bandwagon's very own Rashad McCants, came out with a Joker mask on to start the season. He looked fierce, was ready to go. They ended up getting blown out by like 20. He was fierce, ready to go. Nate Robinson hits the game-winning 3. Runs over to the bench, immediately grabs the Joker mask, and a skirmish ensues between him and Rashad McCants.
How wonderful was that?
I think, dude, so the thing is, I mentioned this about a year ago on the show. The Big Three will eventually overtake the NBA, 100%.
Yeah.
The only thing I was worried about is the drama factor. You know, the tune-in factor for the Big Three. We've got it. The NBA's got drama. Well, look at us. Big Three's got drama too.
We've got a former Kardashian versus a former dunk champion.
Tiny dunk champion too. He's very small.
He is.
And a Joker mask was included in that.
Yeah.
Joker from Batman.
Tell me when you have that in the NBA, folks. Sorry, Cato.
Never is the answer.
But thank you to Cato. Victor, I love you. Happy Thursday.
I love you as well. Happy Thursday.
And that's it. We'll talk to you probably next Friday, with the 4th of July being when we usually record.
I mean, I'm down to record on the 4th of July. I don't have plans. I don't have a life. Nor do you, because you don't have a life either. So
I'll be in Milwaukee, so maybe I'll record from the biggest party of summer. I don't know yet.
I think you should potentially go find Giannis.
Ooh,
that would make a show.
I like it.
Okay.
All right, great.
It's booked.
All right, good talk.
Go Power up against Three's Company.
All right.
Week. Go Power.
Go Tri-State in Chicago this weekend. Peace.
Yes, sir.
What up, Miss C? It's your boy V Hen. You knew I'd have to come at him again. 2018. 4 years later. Change the style up a little bit. One day I was walking down the street. I was really thirsty, so I walked a piece, had a big glass of water. Then I had to pee, so I ran all the way home. Then I opened up the door. I ran straight to the party. My bladder couldn't hold it anymore. I lifted up the seat, and then I began to pee. They went from the kidneys to the ureter, down to the bladder, where it all matters. Then through the urethra, where I'll have to release you out the urinary means. Then it exited my penis. Then it exited my penis. Later on that night, I had a pain that I couldn't fight. I was dizzy and I had to throw up, and my temperature was as high as you know what. I couldn't take it anymore, so I had to go to the doctor. I got checked out. Yeah, boy, was about to pass out. Then the doctor came in to give me my diagnosis. Last night I was up until 10, worrying about this prognosis. He said, well, Houston, we have a problem. I said, whatever it is, Doc, we're gonna solve it.
Tomorrow's production available in today's morning.
I'm about to put down this microphone. I'm about to put down this microphone. It was a kidney stone. It was a kidney stone. It was a kidney stone. And we out. Drive safe. Thank all. It was a kidney stone.